Boom. And just like that, we are back for a third episode on my podcast series. With much anticipation, please welcome Stephen Gallagher on today's episode. Stephen is very much known for Chimera, Doctor Who, and the 11th Hour, but not the American version, the UK version. But today we won't even really be discussing those. We will be discussing Crusoe from 2009, a show that he came on to assist and write for. And honestly, this was a fantastic interview. He went into so much detail of just the behind the scenes, how he wrote, his experiences, and I really think you'll enjoy. I've got a few updates as well, so stay tuned till the end so I can give those updates on upcoming videos. Other than that, please enjoy. Welcome to Stephen again. I'll see you at the end. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today to discuss Crusoe back from 2009. How have you been?
Oh, I've been good. I've been good. 2009. It's a long time ago. Seems like yesterday.
Really? Okay, so you
Mhm.
remember it mostly like as you were filming it. You can, I assume, picture what you were doing.
Well, I never went on the set. I never actually saw any of the. Well, when I say I never saw any of the filming, the way that we structured it was that we filmed all of the UK scenes first.
That was in
So
York. Yes.
I actually wrote all of the UK scenes first because the way that the show came about was a little bit unusual, and to a certain extent, it was the most enjoyable ride of a show that I've ever been on because it all started with a failure when I went
Yep.
down to be interviewed for a job at Power TV. When I say a job, I mean a writing gig. They had a script for El Cid, the great kind of legendary Spanish hero portrayed by Charlton Heston in the movie of the same name. They had a script for a TV miniseries, but it had been written by a French writer and was in French. And they'd had a kind of meat and potatoes translation done of it. It was before AI could be put to use on that kind of thing. So I think they just had, a straight translator, but not a dramatist translating it. And they wanted a rewrite job on it. So I went down. My agent rang me up and says, "Do you want to pitch for this?" And I was in a slack spot, and I said, "Yeah, I'll go for it. I'll go and talk to them." So I went down, and we had a really nice meeting. It was with Richard Mewis and Ava Radvanska, and we got on fine. And I didn't get the gig, and that was fine. It was just a rewrite job. It wasn't upsetting to lose it, but on the other hand, it's a slight dent to your ego when something doesn't quite come off.
Enough.
And I thought no more of it. And months went by. And I saw that Crusoe had been commissioned by NBC from Power TV, the very company that I'd been down for the meeting at. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. How are you going to get, a mini series or an extended series out of a book that is mainly one guy's interior monologue?
Yes. Yep.
And
Yep.
they were pitching it as Pirates of the Caribbean for television, a buddy movie, Crusoe and Friday on the Island. Sometimes against the island, sometimes against, the forces of nature, sometimes against each other. And I'm still thinking, how are you going to get 13 hours out of that? And I thought, well, good luck, and there was a writer's strike then, which put a hold on just about every project that was going. And towards the end of the writer's strike, I got a call saying, "Would you be interested in doing an episode of Crusoe?" Well, of course, I'd heard of Crusoe. I knew that there was the NBC connection, and I said, "Well, I'm not sure that I want to, be a strike breaker." Well, I am sure that I don't want to be a strike breaker. Is this
Fair
a
enough.
struck project? So my agent said, "Well, we'll find out." So she put an inquiry in. By the time she came back with the answer, no, it's not a struck project, the strike was over. But the strike had left the producers in a bit of a quandary because nobody had been able to work on the script in that time. And when the director and writer team that they had engaged before the strike turned their work in, it just didn't work. And I saw their outline, I saw their pitch documents, and Yeah, it was good work, but it didn't work. It wasn't everything that was promised in the original pitch that had been made by Justin to NBC. And I said, well, okay, I'd be quite interested to do a 1 hour episode, be a part of the team, but I would need to know, who's the showrunner and what's the show concept? How are you going to make it work over 13 hours? And the reply came back, we were rather hoping you might be able to suggest something, which was great because there I was in the position of being able to, without any kind of exposure or vulnerability on my part, just sort of tell them what kind of show Crusoe ought to be. And they could either follow it up or they could pass on it, and we'd all go on our way, and nobody would have anything to complain about. And I looked at the material, and it became clear to me, looking at the pitch, that no one else had read the book, because I'd read the book many, many years before, and I had to return to it again. So I gave it a very fast reread, and very quickly determined that there was one section that I think would be rich pickings for a TV show. Because, as I say, so much of Crusoe is one man on his own, one man being introspective, one man with another guy, with all of the kind of colonial overtones that come with a story from that age of a man and a quote savage in some kind of personal relationship. And so what I did was I homed in on the one chapter, or the one little section, where a bunch of mutineers land on the other side of the island. Because how do you have drama without other people to interact with? You can only go so far, having Crusoe and Friday, discussing their relationship with their fathers while they're building a boat. You can only go so far getting adventure out of two guys on an island, because you would always finish up resorting to the same kind of plot. The two of them argue, one of them stamps off, falls in a hole. The other one comes to rescue him, and they reconciled at the end of it. Next week, have an argument. The other one stamps off, falls in a hole, gets menaced by some creature on the island, and they have to. There are limits, is what I was saying. But with the mutineers on the island, then you had an option for drama. The other thing that I saw as a problem was the lack of women in the story. Yeah, it was two guys and a load of mutineers. And the thought I had was, well, let's go the route of the disguised apprentice to the surgeon, which was a historical fact. You had women going to sea dressed as boys. It was the only way that they could have fulfilling lives of adventure if they wanted to break out of the mold that was placed on a female at that time. So that was quite a legitimate thing to put in. Also, we had flashbacks were promised to Crusoe's life in the UK. Yeah, you want to get in here?
Yeah, I do a little bit, because that's completely different. Of course, the flashbacks, because I've had to read. So for this, I've read the book over the last month. Oh my god, the book was so boring. So I have to compliment you. I have to compliment you highly, because you've done so much with almost nothing. No offense to Daniel Defoe. Really. I have to really compliment you on that.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Defoe. He invented the modern adventure novel. It didn't exist in any form until he put that together and wrote a popular, overseas adventure with all the hijinks and all this. But of course, we're now in the 21st century. We have different expectations, so we have to make a kind of intellectual leap to appreciate the book as it was. But there are problems with it. Crusoe didn't have a wife and child in the book, as he was pitched to have in the TV show. When he sailed away and was shipwrecked, he was on his way to buy slaves to sell them again in the Americas. And again, that's not great. The relationship that he has with Friday in the book is the relationship of a white European and and I always put the quotes up, savage. What kind of turned it around for me a little bit was, and I had to go away and think about this when they put me on the spot and said, what would you do with the book? What would you do with this show? How would you get from the book to what we've promised to deliver? Our Pirates of the Caribbean buddy movie on the high seas. And I went away for a weekend. I walked the dog in the woods and thought hard about it, and took a little tape recorder with me and recorded thoughts as I went along. And what I came up with, in very short order, was to take the little section of the book with the mutineers, to blend it with Daniel Defoe's own life story, which was a lot more interesting than the backstory that he gave to Crusoe. He won and lost fortunes. He wasted a dowry. He was reputed to be a spy. He disappeared for a while when it's thought he might have gone to the Americas. He was a bit of a Jack the Lad. And, he was also an extremely prolific and influential writer. And so I thought, well, let's take some of Crusoe's backstory and blend it with Defoe's own backstory and make him a more interesting guy. And the second part of the transformation for me was reading about a black guy who'd been shipwrecked. He'd not been shipwrecked. He'd been put ashore.
Yeah,
He'd been marooned.
That was the original story.
He'd been marooned, and all he had was all they left him with was a flintlock rifle and some gunpowder and a bit of ammunition. So for maybe 3 or 4 days, he could shoot some food, and then after that, he'd be starving to death. And I forget what the original dispute was, why they'd put him on shore, but it's what they used to do if a sailor fell out with the rest of the crew. They'd find an island, they'd dump him, and they'd sail away. And what this guy did was he disassembled the musket. He made a knife out of the metal parts. He used the flint to make fire, and he survived for something like 7 years until a passing ship picked him up, and he was healthy. He was well fed. He'd sustained himself really well. And I thought, well, here we have in the book Crusoe lecturing Friday on the arts of survival. That would not happen. It would be the other way around. And as soon as I thought that, I thought, well, Crusoe is going to respect Friday. And Friday obviously likes Crusoe, and there's where your buddy movie lies. The idea that Crusoe has had an education in race relations in a way. And so when I came to write the pilot, the pirates, the mutineers who all show up on the shore at the very beginning, their first attitude is to look down on Friday, and Crusoe's first thing is to say, I would not have survived were it not for that guy. He speaks my language with ease. I can't tongue around his. And the only reason why he can't read is because he's had no use for it so far, but I bet you he would pick it up in a week. So that's where we came in. I pitched all of that to them. The fruits of possibly the most productive weekend I've ever had. And they said, yeah, let's go for it. We have an air date. At which point we were suddenly in production. And I was put on the phone to the producer, Jeffrey Hayes, who became a great friend and taught me a lot. And, I mourn his loss to this day because he's no longer with us. And I was in the strange position then of being treated like an American showrunner writer, because up to that point, I'd always worked in the UK. I'd always worked in the British scene, where the writer is somebody who, you hire to bang out a script. He brings the script to the door and hands it over. You say, thank you very much. You slam the door in the writer's face, and then you go off and make the show. That's now changing. But up to that point, that was kind of, the experience of the industry. And to actually be a participant was something new to me. And what I say to young writers now when I'm working with them, and I do a little bit of mentoring and a little bit of education, stuff like that, is I say, don't think of yourself as a writer, think of yourself as a showmaker, because, you have to be all the way across production. You have to be all the way across the crafts. It's good to know what everybody does, because what you're doing is you're supplying them with the means to make the show. You're with them on an equal footing. You are not just this this kind of intellectual outsider who has thoughts and dreams and then hands the thing over, and then the crew has to make it work. You are part of the crew. You're with them. So all of that was new to me. And what happened was we had no scripts, we had no show, we just had a pitch, we had a producer, and we didn't even have a cast at that point. but we did have an air date that we were working towards, and so there was a lot of pressure on for that. And that was lovely because it meant nobody messed about with me. You know, I just did my work, other people did theirs, and we all worked together and we all meshed together. And I'm really proud of what we produced.
I wow, thank you for all that. Jeez, you can have a break
Mhm.
now if you need.
I'm sorry. I do tend to go on.
Oh no, I don't. I personally don't mind. I'm enjoying hearing this because like I've just learned something new about production. I don't know much about production, but for me watching the show, I enjoyed it when I was younger, and I still enjoying it watching today. I feel like the intro is a little bit dated, but it just reminds me of an early 2000s show. But you did really well on a show coming from like very little to work with, and then adding your own little spices into that. And you did a wonderful job. And I will always give you like that much credit. You did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. When you say the intro's a bit dated, what are you thinking
It
of there?
just
No, I'm not pulling you up on it.
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
curious to know. Yeah.
The intro just feels like one of the early 2000s shows with the the music in the so
All
it's
right.
like
Yeah.
base name,
Mm.
base name, base name. It's just it feels
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
So the opening credit
I like
sequence.
it.
Yeah.
I like it. It just
Yeah.
feels because when I watch it, I feel like I'm back in early like 2009 personally.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
fine with that because I didn't do that part. But the actual the actual kind of setup, the very the teaser setup at the very beginning where Crusoe talks about Providence, that is actually lifted straight from Defoe. And it's one of the few things that is. I mean, every now and again, if I could find something in Defoe's original that I could put into the show, I absolutely would. But
I'm
please don't ask me
surprised.
to comb through and and pick them out.
No. I was gonna say that because I'm surprised in the book, Crusoe's more of a God-fearing man at the start,
Hmm.
too, just a little bit further in, and but in the show, it's just like that's not really at all that topic. It's not really talked about at all. It's just like
Yeah, we lay
I'm
out
on
the
an
notion of
island.
providence. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
And
much it.
Providence, I think, is the thing that was very much in Defoe's mind at the time. And having laid that out, the brief was, to produce a fun family show. So nothing rude, nothing over the top, good, clean fun. Gets a little gruesome in places, but then again, it's hard to keep that down. People fished out of the river, especially when they said, "Oh, can we do a cannibalism one?" So, I mean,
Oh yeah, fair.
how do, how do you do tasteful cannibalism?
So you filmed in York, but you never went to South Africa to film, did you? At all?
Not personally, no. All the
Okay.
execs got to go out there, but I
So
didn't. I was at home. I was still working on the show all the way up to almost the shooting of the final episodes.
okay.
We were writing it as they were shooting it and delivering stuff as we went along. So it was quite a dynamic process, and it would have been great for me to go out. And one of the reasons it would have been great for me to go out because, it would have been useful to see the production setup because I could have maybe tailored the scripts to make life a little bit easier for everyone down there. For example, I had regular scenes in which Crusoe in his treehouse would talk to Friday on the ground and vice versa. What I wasn't aware of until the whole thing had wrapped and the shooting was over was that the treehouse set and the base of the tree set were about 4 or 5 miles apart.
Oh
So in
wow.
order to shoot
Yeah.
those scenes, they had to do a crew move. Now, a crew move is quite a time wasting and expensive thing to do. So I could have eliminated that quite easily. I mean, I once worked on a historical show, a thing called Murder Rooms,
Heard
um,
of that, yeah.
where we had a scene that I'd written, which was a dinner party scene, and they'd costed it at something like £45,000 and we're over budget. And I said, well, I know, it's kind of 7 people around a table. Why is it so expensive? And they said, well, the way we do things at the BBC is we have to cater a an era appropriate meal, and we have to do 3 versions of it so that we can do 3 setups. So I said, give me the scene back. So I took it away, and when I delivered it again, it just said soup course. And with that, we wiped £45,000 off the budget. Now that's what you can do if you're savvy to what's going on the set. And nobody else had suggested that, but I mean, we sent some caterers away a bit disappointed, but there you go.
I mean,
Them's the
that's your
breaks.
that's your experience. You just oh, what's the word? Um, you're so optimal with what you do. You know how to like make sure it's like you save money, time, and just get it done. A really good production done. That's really cool.
Well, it
I
takes a long time to acquire that. It's a lifetime of showing up and hanging around on the set, even when you're not wanted. Because the Writers Guild, when I started out, the Writers Guild sort of standard contract was that the producers were obliged to pay your expenses for a 1 day visit to the set, and that was it. And you'd show up and you'd go and stand by the sound cart because that's always the safest place to stand, so you won't be in shot and you won't be in anybody's way. And if you're lucky, you get to say hello to some of the cast, all of whom are kind of deep in their own work, so they don't really have time to talk to the writer. And then you go away again at the end of it. And I've always said it's a bit like, having to invite the bride's old boyfriend to the wedding. They'd rather he didn't show up, but they kind of felt they had to invite him. And it was a show of mine called Chimera, where I actually got quite heavily involved in the making of it. Again, it was another show where we got the go date before we'd got the scripts written. And so it was kick, bollock, and scramble, as they say in the business, to get the thing made, which meant that any help out that I could offer was gladly taken. I wasn't excluded by any means. So I worked quite closely with the special effects people. I worked quite closely with the location scouts. I was all over the shooting of it, as I say, like a wet shirt. And I learned a ton from that production. I've learned a ton from every production that I've ever worked on. And I'm finally getting to the point where, I think maybe, in a little while I might know something, by which time it's all going to be too late.
I mean, you're still going strong. Like from what you like said in previously, you're still going, and that's quite impressive. It's like so nice to see. It's like you clearly enjoy what you're doing, and you're still going, and you genuinely want to help, like the crew when you
Yeah.
join up a
Well,
project.
my wife occasionally hints about retiring, and I say, well, what would I do? Because what I do for a living is what most people aspire to do when they retire. But they want to knock off, they want to write. And well, like, what would I do? Go and manage an office somewhere or get a
Yeah,
job in
fair enough.
construction?
I mean, you still want to be hands on, which is I really respect that.
Yeah.
Um, well, I had like a bunch of questions. I'm like, oh, what was it like being on the island? Well, that's out of the boom, that's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah. And in fact, we didn't shoot on an island. We shot in a place called I think it's
Uh,
called Nature's Valley in South Africa.
say
So
Seychelles,
we
I think.
faked the island. Yeah. Oh, you've looked it up. Yeah. Well done.
I gotta do my research, like I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about.
In
Uh,
that case, you may know more than I do.
uh, um, well, I want to ask then at some point. And this is like an opinion. I'm not. This is not a
Mm,
go at anyone, but I feel like
mm,
the show was made to fail, and the reason why I say that is because
mm.
from what I was looking up, it was like it was there was a budget that was spent, a lot of advertising, which was great, but apparently it was put on a really bad time frame, which was like a Friday night. I think this is for America, though I'm not sure about what the UK was doing. And then eventually, it started with like 7.5 mil people watching, which I think is good. I don't know production wise if that's a good thing or not, right? And and then it halved, and then it halved again, and the NBC moved it to Saturdays, which kind of just uh, made it. It seems like it was set up to fail. I don't know if like you can comment on that or
I can't really because I've not got any inside knowledge on it. What I do know is that there was a change of management at NBC between the commissioning of it and the broadcast of it. They were committed to making it as good as it could be.
Yes.
So nobody makes a bad show by intent. And I think we made a good show, and I think there was no better looking show on the air, and not many that have looked as good since.
Yeah. Agreed.
When the thing was commissioned, and I apologize to the guy, I've completely forgotten his name, but there was a golden boy at NBC who commissioned the show, and I think Justin Bodle, the head of Power TV, pitched it direct to him, and it was kind of a pet project of his, a personal project. And I imagine the two of them sitting in a jacuzzi somewhere in the Hollywood Hills, running through a list of properties as to what has name recognition. And Robinson Crusoe was one of the names on a list. Apparently, there was a genuine list where they put together public domain names that everybody would recognize. So, in a way, the pitching of Crusoe was just the pitching of the name. It wasn't the pitching of the book. It wasn't the pitching of a show concept or anything. So that's a hell of a lot of weight for just a name to carry. And they didn't have a show until they came to me, and we worked something out between us as to what would actually fulfill the pitch that they'd got. In the meantime, the golden boy, whose name I've forgotten, was either toast or history, but he moved on, and a new management had come in. And so many times in my career, I have seen a new management sweep the desk of their predecessors' projects. They don't want them to fail so badly that the company's damaged, but it does them no credit to see it succeed. And also, I think there was some kind of buyer's remorse over, oh God, we made a Robinson Crusoe TV series, and that's not fashionable at the moment. So what happened, I do not know. But I do know that we had a great launch. I remember because it was after Crusoe, I went to work on 11th Hour in
Yes.
Hollywood, and
Yeah.
I arrived, and I picked up my rented Jeep from the airport and drove up Sunset Boulevard. And as I drove up Sunset Boulevard, I passed a billboard with Rufus Sewell's face on it for the launch of 11th Hour, the CBS version of 11th Hour, remade from the British version that I created. And when I stopped to fill up with petrol, I was on one of these forecourts with a little video screen on top of the pump, which plays you ads as you're filling up, because they've got a captive audience for the next 45 seconds. So they will bloody well advertise to you.
Yeah.
And up came an ad for Crusoe,
Wow.
a Crusoe promo. And I thought, oh my God, I've just driven past my own billboard. Here's my other show. Life ain't going to get any better than this. And sure
That's
enough,
fair.
life will never get better than that.
That's fair. I mean, I still think I'll keep saying it, and I'll say it again and again. You worked on a wonderful show. I enjoy it. Like from my experience here, there was a few ads for it, but it
Mm,
wasn't as I would say as big as that. Yeah,
mm,
we don't
mm,
have ads at
mm,
our
mm,
petrol pumps. Like, geez, we
mm.
have like signs, but not like a TV
Yeah.
screen. Jeez. But it's like I've asked a few people over kind of the last few months, and not many people know it here.
Mm.
So I guess it got aired at a bad time here as well. I'm not too sure what the.
It got quite a poor airing in Britain as well.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it went out first. I think it got stripped over the Christmas period on Channel 5, which is kind of our least prominent of our five or six main channels. And it's now, I think it's available on Amazon Prime, so
Yes.
you can pay to see it. And the thing is, it doesn't go away. It's still, you look on Amazon and it's got a good star rating, because it's a family entertainment where there's very little of that around. Um, it's either stuff that goes over children's heads or stuff that's too infantile for adults. Whereas Crusoe, I think we pitched it nicely in the middle. We
Oh,
had a nice
nice.
relationship in the middle. It was a diverse show. It was a very good looking show. And although money ran low towards the end, um, we got around that by what I did was I wrote the first two or three, and I did some rewrites on the others that aren't credited. And then I also wrote the two-parter to finish the whole thing off. And Jeff said to me, Steve, we're quite low on money, so can we keep the cast down on this one? We had Sam Neill, which was great because all I really needed was our principals at that point, the people who'd been hired. So there was Sam Neill, Mark Dexter, Kieran Bew playing Crusoe's relatives from back home, and we got them all on the set. And I wrote basically a five-hander for the five of them, and it was largely Crusoe, Friday, and Sam Neill as Jeremiah Blackthorne, I think was the name of our bad guy. And it was terrific to write a three-hander for them. And also, I said, well, if we're not coming back, can I burn the sets? Because that would be a way of putting some spectacular stuff on screen without any extra cost.
Yeah.
And what had happened up to that point was when we started production, NBC were quite clear that what they wanted was a mini series or a limited series where there would be no second season. It would tell a story right up to the end. Towards the end of shooting, Justin started to get the idea that maybe there'd be a second season in this. So I was asked to keep the ending open. So instead of returning Crusoe home, I had to keep him on the island, and leave also open the notion that he could go on and have the book's ending.
I did want to ask with that. Sorry to run.
No,
we can have another break now. It's just because watching that after watching so many shows recently, it's the most kind of tame open-ended cliffhanger to a show, because it's like it's not directly saying there is a second season, but it's like a foreshadow to it. It's just really weird because most shows you see at the end of season one, it's like, oh, there's definitely going to be these questions answered, but you didn't do that to that extreme. I have to compliment you on that, like for sure. You did. I'm just going to compliment you. Or
oh. I'd rather that than you sit here and insult me. So
I'm not going to. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, Justin did get the idea that maybe there'd be a second season, so asked me to keep it open, and yeah, I discussed it with Jeff, and we said, well, we've done everything we can on the island. If we do get a second season, we'll have to have the escape. And Jeff came up with the idea of, well, let's put the two of them on the high seas, making their way back to Europe against various obstacles and getting held back and getting shipwrecked again, and maybe have to fight the Garda Costa and maybe in prison at one point. They have to escape from a prison. So we'd come up with this whole litany of things that, to be honest, I'm not sure that our hearts would have been in it. We'd told the story and it had reached an end. And as I say, I think I'm proud of what we did. And NBC had been quite clear from the very beginning that it was going to be a limited series. So it's not that we were cancelled either. We showed up, we did what we were paid to do, and we finished the job.
Okay. That's fair enough. Damn, this is crazy. Thank you for all this information. It's I'm lost for words at the moment.
Don't worry. It's been a while, but it was quite a formative experience for me. It led to my entire kind of set of behaviors when I did go over to the States and work in Hollywood, because I'd had the experience of working with Jeff. I knew what producers expected of writers in the Hollywood system. I hadn't been part of a writing room at that point. We had a bunch of writers who came in, and we had like a half day together in a room where I would go through the season arc that I'd devised and said, look, this happens at this part of this series. This happens at this part of the series. I thought we'd have a cannibal story here. We thought we'd have this kind of story here. Anybody feel any particular affinity for that? Anybody got any suggestions they want to throw in? Now, that's the way a writer's room works, but it works on a kind of 9 to 5, 5 day a week basis where ideas are churning all the time. We had 2 afternoons where the writers could pitch in. And that, of course, meant that in order to get the series episodes with a coherence and a kind of evenness of style, we had to do a lot of revising and rewriting. Had I been one of the team, or not really a team, but one of the other writers, I would have been really unhappy about that, and I'm sure they were probably quite unhappy about it as well. And can I be on record as to apologizing to them for that? But it was the nature of the circumstances that we were given for making the show. It would have been great had we all been in a room together, fully participating in the breaking of every story and the finessing of every episode. But the British system doesn't allow for that. You see, the British system is that you buy a story off the writer and then you make it, as I've described before. Yeah. The American system is you hire the writer to work on the show, and the stories come along as part of that relationship. And in fact, it's reflected in the remuneration as well. Because if you work on a UK TV series, then your main remuneration is your script fee.
Okay.
If you work on an American series, then you're on a salary. If you're an executive producer or a co-exec, you get so much per episode for that. If you're lower down the ladder, you get a proportionate amount per episode for that. And then when you actually contribute a script, that's not really the largest component of your fee. It's actually quite a smaller component. Then you get your name on the episode, and then if the show sells, then you get residuals for the rest of your life, or the rest of the life of the show, wherever that may end up. And I still do get residuals for Crusoe. It's a good few years later, but it's still making me money.
Very nice. Very nice. So if let's just say let's just say this was promoted again, all those views would still go to you. You'd get more, just to confirm, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean it's not a lot of money that comes in from residuals. It's a proportion of the fee that's paid for the airing of the show.
Oh, okay.
And it's split between me and many other people. So what actually comes in by the end of it is not stuff you could live on, but if you've done enough, then the stuff. I've always said that a writer's economy is a mosaic of things. It's payments for new pitches when you sell one. It's payments for scripts when you get to write one, and it's residuals from old work as it slowly drips in. And at any one time, if you're doing okay, then you've got all three of those things working together, and it's worked for me. It doesn't always work out for everyone, but if you can pull that off, then you can be a happy writer, as I am.
You seem to be happy. You're still going. You quite enjoy talking about it, so I'm happy to listen. I'm curious. I'm just questions off my head at this point. With Sean and Sam coming into the script with in York, was that an NBC request, or was that something that the team wanted to get into the show?
That's Justin Bodle being extremely canny. He'd worked with Sam before on something, and I think he'd worked with Sean before on something. And what Justin did was, it was kind of baked in from the very beginning with the flashbacks, because the plan was we'd do the flashbacks in York, shoot them all in 2-3 weeks. With them in the can, then the unit would move out to South Africa, shoot the episodes, and then the flashbacks would be slotted into the episodes. You'll notice that all the big famous names in Crusoe are all in the flashbacks. And that's because, we got Sean Bean for 3 or 4 days. We got Sam for 3 or 4 days in York, but then we got him again in South Africa. So that was great. But all the big names in Joss Ackland all got paid for 3 or 4 days' work. They showed up, they did their scenes, and then the scenes were cut all the way through the 13 episodes. So you get Sean Bean, his face pops up in every opening credit sequence, because it's a show with Sean Bean in every episode. I think he actually dies about halfway through, but he carries on. He carries on in the flashbacks. And that was Justin's genius, really, because he'd done this before, and it was very canny. He got the big names in for the minimum amount of period. I, I don't know if they owed him or whether he just had really good relationships with them or what, but certainly, Sean turned up, did a fantastic little job. There's there are women in my village who kind of go a flutter when I mention that Sean Bean was in a show that I worked on, and and that
That's great.
yeah that actually works quite well for me as well. So,
That's great.
but yeah, I mean
Uh,
the trick of it was as well. I had to write all of the backstory before we'd written any episodes.
mm,
So bear in mind, all those flashbacks were written first, and the way we did it was we had nothing to begin with. And Jeff and I and Jonathan Lee, the production designer, who is currently working on a Star Wars series, the Strange New Worlds series.
yes,
So,
yes.
I mean, it was Jonathan who really started the whole thing off with his production design. Justin got him to design Crusoe's treehouse and some of the ingenious devices that Crusoe built, and those were the drawings that he showed around to get interest in the show originally. So I then had to incorporate all of that, of course, which was great because it gave me stuff to work with. But Jeff and I and Jonathan and Andrew Warren, who was our UK sort of on the ground producer, we went to York. We went round various locations in York. I was at university in Hull, which is about 20, 30 miles away from York, and it was one of our kind of favorite weekend haunts. So I knew the city quite well, and I was able to take them and show them one or two of the hidden away historic places that weren't on the agenda, and one or two of them actually made it into the show. We then we toured the town. We looked at all these places. We then got together in the railway station hotel, the station hotel right next to York's historic railway station. Sat around a table. And we worked through what we'd seen. I said, okay, the Fairfax house, we could have that as Crusoe's parents' house, and we could have his dad's death scene in there. We could have certain scenes and, actually certain scenes for certain rooms. The old crypt, we could actually have as the mortuary where Crusoe's mother is laid out. The Merchant Adventurers Hall, that would be great for the court case that Crusoe witnesses, where and we went through it like that, and I kind of worked out what the flashbacks were going to be around the locations that we'd seen. Andrew then went off to sort of talk to the owners of all the properties and to fix up shooting there. Jonathan went looking at them to look for his designs placed upon them, and I went home and wrote really an hour-long scenario, which was all of the flashbacks, almost as a single hour's production. I mean, what I would have loved to have seen had we had a more elaborate DVD to play with, would have been some feature where you took all of the flashback scenes and just edited them into a single episode. Because there were some scenes that were lost from the flashbacks that I really miss, and one of them was a scene between Joaquim de Almeida and Daniel Defoe. Joaquim de Almeida played the Spanish captain,
Yes.
and we had Daniel Defoe meeting him in a pub, and the captain pitching to him fundraising ideas for getting back to the island to rescue Crusoe and Friday. And at the end of it, he says, "So, are you in? When can I expect the funds?" And Defoe says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mislead you. I'm just a writer. I just tell stories." And this was Defoe getting the story from the captain, which he is then going to write as the book, which bears so little resemblance to what happened in the series, but that would be Defoe's interpretation of it. So of the show and the book was kind of defined in that one scene, and it was a lovely little scene, and it hit the cutting room floor. So whoever the actor was who played Defoe in that, I apologize to you. You did great.
If you do you have those lost flashbacks by any chance? Because
I do not.
I was gonna say I could probably
Uh,
cut them all together and like upload it. That would be so cool.
well, only in the sense that of what's there on the screen. I don't have any
Yeah.
of the missing
Uh,
scenes. I mean, back when I did October, I was the director on that one, so all of the stuff I've got in one form or another, whether it's the audition stuff on VHS tapes or the widescreen version which never aired. I've got that on
damn.
Betacam tapes. Yeah, so
Love to
so
see that
oh well, one day maybe.
one day.
I'm hunting for a Blu-ray producer who'd take it on.
Nah, that's fair. I can't do that. No, I'm not that good.
Nah.
Well, I think you've pretty much answered most of the questions I was going to ask you. You're just like out, boom, and I
I'm
thank
sorry
you.
I steamrolled through,
No,
but
no, that's fine. I'm happy to just listen and just take it all. Um,
well, you see, I don't often get asked about Crusoe. It's
okay,
as I say, it's been a while, and I get asked a lot about Doctor Who. And yeah, but I have my Doctor Who anecdotes, which I've kind of milked for several years now, and I don't have any new ones to add. But Crusoe, I don't often get asked about, so it's nice to have an opportunity to unload.
you're gonna hate me, but I'm not really a fan of Doctor Who. Don't leave, don't leave.
That's okay. That's okay.
I know a
I mean,
lot of people that are, but
I'm,
it was never like a me
mm,
thing, right?
mm,
I'm a Star Trek
mm,
versus Doctor Who
mm,
fan
mm.
personally. Um,
You see, I go back to the origins of Doctor Who. I was one of the earliest viewers, back in the William Hartnell era. I've
yes,
been around that long. But my association with the show is that of, I'm a professional. I was a kid who loved it, and I'm a professional who worked on it. Um, I am not one of the very, very knowledgeable and immersed, dedicated fans that I often find myself spending time with at these weekends. I mean, they're lovely people, and I consider them my people, but I cannot say that I have the in-depth knowledge and the unbridled enthusiasm for everything who that a true fan has. So, true fan
fair
as
enough.
in TRUFAN. That's not me. I can't claim that.
Well, I'm curious. Is Doctor Who the reason why you got into handling production? Like why you got into this form of your career?
No, I mean that's in a way. Doctor Who was the very first TV job I ever did, and I did 2 seasons of that, just as the writer who hands his stuff over and then sees it made over and remade and then shot by other hands. It wasn't until Chimera, which was a good 10 years later, that I actually got deeply involved in any way in production. And that spoilt me a little bit because I'd written the book and I'd written the adaptation of the book, and then I got to work on the show.
Wow.
And anything less than that, from that point onwards, was kind of, for me, not the real thing. If I couldn't be that deeply involved, then it was a little bit disappointing. But I do regard myself as someone who can now walk in on a show that is in trouble. And even if it's not my show, and even if it's not a show that I necessarily love, I can get you out of a hole. I can do your professional job. It happened on a show that I won't name, but
Fair enough.
fairly recently, where they had under budgeted for the writers, and they had an episode that wasn't covered.
Okay.
So they had a team of writers and a showrunner who had covered all the other episodes, but somewhere around the middle of the season, they needed a new episode that would slot in, that would pick up where the others had left off, and then allow the others to continue after that. And they needed it quick. So I went in. I'd worked with the head of the company before, and he suggested me for it. And I went in and met with the producers, heard what they needed, heard what they wanted, offered them 3 storylines, and they chose one, and I executed that, and it slotted right in. And then what happened was in the Radio Times, they did a season review and picked out mine as the best show of the season. And at that
Very
point,
nice.
I thought, I'm not going to be asked back. And sure enough, I was not asked back.
Oh no. Damn, that's crazy. Walks in, fixes their problem, leaves, no explanation at all. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
But there's
Oh,
oh god, what's the movie? It's the one where Jeff Bridges, I think, plays or is it it's a boxing movie.
Jeff Bridges.
I'm thinking Jeff Bridges. It's not Jeff Bridges. It's anyway, it's about a down and out boxer who is out for one last chance, and he builds himself up to it, and gets pasted at the end of it. And he gets pasted by a guy who turns up with his trunks in a little bag and
Yeah.
his boxing gloves. You see him walk into the dressing room. That's all you see of him. Then you see him in the ring giving our guy a pasting, and then at the end of it, you see him with his little bag with his boxing glove and his trunks in it, walking off again. And that's me.
That's great. Well, in that case,
I see your cat's photobombing
yes, yeah, he did it. He did it to my last interview too. No, not again.
Oh, there you go.
No. He did this. He did this. A couple of days ago as well. I'm actually annoyed at him. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, there's only room for one asshole in this podcast.
Oh no. That's great. Oh, that's great. I'm taking that. I'm taking that. Well, in that case, is there anything you're working on at the moment that you would like to share, or you're allowed to share?
I'm not really allowed at the moment. I do have a couple of shows, one of which I've got a Zoom call with New Zealand tomorrow.
Ooh.
So I've got another early morning for me, late night for them. And that's been ongoing. That was stalled by COVID, and then went very quiet for a while. But it's back up on its feet again, and we've got an A-list director attached, and I'm quite hopeful that we'll see that one made. But if not, we'll move on to the next.
No, fair enough. Well, who's your favorite character in Crusoe? We'll do like quick short fire questions if you want.
Well, that's not fair.
Okay. What was the character you liked working on instead of what character is your favorite? I think that's
definitely Friday, because Friday
yes.
Friday was I mean, making a success of a character like Friday is a challenge, and not being untrue to Defoe, but not being that true to Defoe that you kind of endorse the notion of the savage, but you actually present the civilized human being who would have taught Crusoe everything he knows, because that's the way it would have worked, and who is civilized, articulate, intelligent, everything that Crusoe was required to be, that the book didn't necessarily allow him to be in the eyes of the contemporary reader. I loved working on Friday, and I think quietly making Friday work in a modern context was probably the thing I'm most proud of.
I really liked him too. I think both actors had a really good chemistry, and you did a script really well, so they would work with each other. I think that obviously that it was the actors that as well that made it work, but the script was really good. I think
there was
a
lovely chemistry between them.
Yeah.
And if you go on YouTube, somewhere on YouTube, there's a little clip of Tongai Chiriza being taught to
archery,
to shoot a bow.
Yeah, I just saw that before this.
Yeah, and he kind of picks it up like that, and by his third or fourth attempt, he's shooting stuff out of the air.
Yeah. It's really impressive. I think that's it. It's wrapping up to an hour. Wow. Thank you.
Have I delighted you enough?
Very much so. You're crazy. Is there anything you'd like to promote? Because I'm happy to talk
later this year. I've got a novella coming out,
okay.
And in fact, you can see it on the shelf behind me. It's a novella from Subterranean Press, and I'm quite proud of it. This
Okay.
is the uncorrected proof that I've just received. So it'll be November of 2024, and it'll be from Subterranean Press, and it's called "The Next Thing You See When You Die."
Yes. Is there a website that would be on? Because I'm happy to like put that at the bottom. Like, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
well, if you
I'm happy
it'll
to
be
do
on
that. I would love to do that
it'll
for
be
you.
on the Subterranean Press website, which is
Sure.
www.subterranean.com, I think.
Okay.
Or it'll be on my website, which is StephenGallagher.com. Or if you just Google my name, I'm up there in the rankings somewhere.
Sure. I'm happy to put that as well in the description below. Please go check that out. Thank you very much for giving me an hour of your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
You've been fantastic. I was quite nervous starting.
No,
But you just
you don't
kind of
have to
like
be. Ah, you do
I
fine.
know, I know. Thank you. I didn't really do much. You just there you go.
That's the art of it. I've done interviewing, and the art of interviewing is just to listen.
That's true.
If you listen, then people respond.
That's very much true. I'm still learning this. So I like your last email was just like, let's make it a conversation. Actually helped me with my last interview. So I have to thank you for that as well. You've helped me so
Oh,
much without even doing much, to be honest. You're
no,
great.
what can I say? I'm a saint.
Thank you very much again. This has been Stephen Gallagher for Crusoe. I hope you have a pleasant rest of your week. Good luck with your new show. Good luck with the book as well. I'll
And
make
good
sure to
luck with the
comment.
podcast.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, good rest of your week. Just before I wrap up with Stephen, I just do need to say I've changed a little bit of how I do things with the interview process. I sent him an email asking, what advice would you give someone aspiring to enter the creative fields of production and or writing? He came in with a fantastic response. His comment as sort of his reply. My answer is always make stuff with your mates. Put on a play. Shoot a no budget movie. Make an audio drama, whatever. Do it for the pure joy of it and then do it again, bearing in mind what you learned from the first time. It's okay to imitate what you love, and the imitation will fall away as you discover what's personal to you. And while you can't control luck, you can keep throwing yourself in the way of it until it hits you. Bon chance, Steve. Big thank you again to Stephen for joining me on an episode of my podcast. I hope you've all gained quite a bit of knowledge on his experiences, how some shows were made, how Crusoe was made especially, and all the passion and love behind whatever he does. From what I'm aware, and from what Stephen has said, he's working on a book at the moment. When he announces that, I will make sure to put the links in the description below so you can all go have a look at that. There's something so wonderful of discussing a writer, producer, director, anything in the creative field. There's something so fascinating about listening to them talk. They just seem to love what they do, and that's probably why they have such long, fulfilling careers. I don't know about all of them, but from the ones I've spoken to so far, and a couple more in the background, they just love what they do, and that always puts a smile on my face. And Stephen really shows that as well. That when you're passionate about something, you can put your mind to it. Time for some updates regarding the channel. Sorry this video took so long. I recorded this in late July, and I'm only just getting to it now, and it's not on purpose. I just, as I said from my last video with Matt, there's a lot going on in the background. I'm not doing it on purpose. It just happens. So again, I thank you all for your patience and bearing with me. I guess just wait when something comes out. I'll keep it updated when I on Twitter when I have an interview with someone. I just can't give you a definite on when I'm gonna put up a video online. Hopefully, I'll streamline it soon. Fuck. Hopefully, I'll streamline it. Why am I saying lime? Hopefully, I'll streamline it soon.
so I can chuck it on Spotify as well without the intro, outro, maybe just a bit of an intro. So it's just a bit easier for people to listen to. I have 2 interviews being recorded at the moment, so look forward to those. Again, I'm not sure when they'll be coming out. Hopefully, I can get one out in December sometime, and one in Jan, depending on how it is, or maybe we get the double upload for the year. Other than that, if you want to keep up to date with what's going on, or what I will be doing in the future, you can follow me on here, Twitter, Twitch, where I'm starting to stream more often. Other than that, thank you for watching. Goodbye for now, not forever.